Late at night, a truck driver stops near the woods to relieve himself. At that moment, a van parks nearby and Edith comes out, but she disappears when the driver turns around. On his way back, the man hears a noise and notices Walter trying to escape from the van. Before he can react, Edith smashes his head on the van and drops him before feeding on him. When another truck parks nearby and illuminates the area, Edith breaks the driver's neck to kill him and hides the body in the van. Walter then finally manages to break his ropes, but when he's about to escape, Edith drags him back and injects him with a sedative. The next morning, Edith sneaks onto a fancy cruise by driving her van among the vehicles that are boarding the ship. Then she gets on the elevator, where a little girl notices her suitcase is shaking. On the way to the bedroom, Edith is seen by Albine, who also notices the suitcase moving. When Edith discovers that Albine is staring, she immediately closes the door. Afterwards, she opens the suitcase, revealing a bound Walter inside. He wakes up and is unhappy to hear they're going to Finland. Edith is about to sedate him again, but Walter begs for mercy and promises to behave. Edith agrees to keep him awake but muzzles him before leaving to get some food. As soon as Edith is gone, Walter begins untying the ropes. Meanwhile, performer Dan is trying to get naughty with a fan, but instead of spurting his seed, his member discharges blood. His shame makes him angry, so he yells at the fan to kick her out. Security guard Pia hears the yelling and comes to check on the poor woman, but Dan assures her everything is fine. Afterward, Dan goes to see performer Nadia, whom he has a crush on. He thinks they should perform together and sings a bit of his new song, causing her dancers to laugh. Nadia says that she likes it, but turns down the idea of performing together. Dan has to swallow his anger. During Nadia's performance, Dan watches her backstage and Pia says it's nice to have a real star on the board, which makes him angrier. Then Dan takes out his phone from his pocket and accidentally drops a bag of illegal substances. When rookie guard boss picks it up, Dan swears it isn't his, but Pia still has to alert the captain. In the audience, Lo tells her cousin Albine that she saw his father drinking again, which he isn't supposed to do because he used to be an addict. However, Albine doesn't want to talk about it. In the control room, the crew helps Vince surprise his boyfriend Kaya with a proposal. Sadly, Kaya apologizes and turns him down, so a devastated Vince runs off. While wandering around the cruise, Edith notices Marianne alone and follows her to the bar. Suddenly, a rude man bumps into Marianne and causes her to spill her drink on her shirt, so she goes to the bathroom to wash up. Edith follows her again, but when she's about to attack, Boren comes in and helps Marianne get the stain off. They end up leaving together, and Edith sighs as she stares at her locket. In the meantime, Tampa leaves his bachelor party to clear his head. When he hears a child's voice asking for help, he follows the noise and finds Walter hiding behind the bed. Tampa immediately grabs the phone to call security, only to hear growling behind him. Suddenly, Walter jumps on him and they struggle until they both fall to the floor. When Tampa checks if the boy is okay, Walter smiles with creepy teeth, confirming that he and his mother are vampires. Walter tackles Tampa and proceeds to suck his blood. Once he's fed, Walter watches Tampa slowly die, then he kicks the body. Suddenly Tampa wakes up and spits all his teeth, since new sharper ones are growing. Tampa is now a vampire too, but he's a mindless beast. Walter takes his hand and tells him he must eat. In the corridor, a drunk woman accidentally drops her card key. Edith picks it up and offers to help her return to her room, which is seen by Pia and Boss. When they make it to Edith's room, there's blood everywhere and Walter and Tampa are gone. Edith decides to feed from the woman alone and kills her when she's done. At the daycare, a little girl gets on the slide but freezes when she notices the balls in the pit moving. Walter appears nearby and mocks her, but they're interrupted by the cruise's mascot. The girl takes the chance to run to her dad while the mascot asks Walter about his father. Walter says his father is dead to make the mascot leave, and Tampa emerges from the ball pit. In the corridors, Edith keeps looking for Walter. When she finds the daycare, she notices the vampire smell in the ball pit and rushes to the front desk to ask for help. The receptionist assures her they can find her kid, but she needs her name and room number. Since Edith is here illegally, she immediately walks away. Walter and Tampa keep trying to find someone to feed, but the chance doesn't present itself and Tampa is getting desperate. When they go to the deck, they see a man taking selfies alone. This guy checks if the pictures came out okay and notices Walter in the back with a creepy expression. Suddenly he's startled by Tampa, who brings him down and starts feeding on him. Walter has to stop him from taking too much and ignores Tampa's growl to force him to leave with him. In the room, Albine and Lo are watching a movie. They're interrupted by Albine's father Martin, who is drunk again. He thinks his family is ashamed of him and maybe he should self-delete. Lo ends up arguing with him and Martin points out she doesn't even have a father, so she leaves. After Martin falls asleep, Albine also leaves the room and finds Lo on the deck. Their chat is interrupted by a weird noise, so Lo turns around to discover the body Tampa left earlier. She takes a picture and posts it online, thinking it's just a drunkard. After the duo leaves, the man finishes transforming into a vampire. Meanwhile, Kaya follows Vince and apologizes for his reaction. He explains he used to work on this cruise but he hated it, so he doesn't want to get married here. Most importantly, Vince wants children and Kaya doesn't, so he can't accept his proposal. After Vince walks off, Kaya goes to the bar to drown his sorrows in alcohol. Dan also drinks and takes his illegal substance backstage. Then he introduces himself before getting on the stage to sing, but not everyone is impressed. He also has to host the karaoke night, and he drinks while the guests sing. Pia approaches him to inform him that the captain wants a urine sample. At the same time, Marianne keeps flirting with Goran and meets his friends, but she considers them quite rude. They surprise her by apologizing for their behavior. When Maddie takes over the mic, Marianne and Goran dance together, and Dan takes the chance to go backstage and keep consuming. While Tampa and Walter also enter the bar, Dan returns to the stage and notices that his nose is bleeding. The smell drives Tampa mad, so he pushes through the crowd and jumps on Dan to try to eat. Dan struggles to stop him while the crowd records everything with their phones. When Dan tries to throw a punch, Tampa bites his hand and starts drinking the blood. In the staff's room, Pia explains to Boss that she hates Dan because he's done the dirty with teenagers. At that moment they get called to the bar. By the time they arrive, Kaye has already pulled Tampa back. Pia and Boss take Tampa away, yet everyone keeps recording and laughing. Dan snaps and starts insulting everyone, so the barman drags him away. At that moment Edith arrives and sees Walter, who immediately runs away. Edith follows him to the deck and reminds him that the elders are already hunting them for what he did, so they can't keep breaking the rules. Walter refuses to obey and points out that vampirism is already spreading, showing her the teeth on the floor before running again. Edith chases Walter through the corridors and insists they should work together. Walter is tired of the old rules, so Edith pulls out the sedative. Before she can attack him, Walter yells for help and two guests come to his aid, so Edith runs away. On the deck, Goran and Marianne almost kiss. Goran wants to spend the night together, but Marianne panics and leaves alone. After locking Tampa up, Pia and Boss are called to check on Walter and conclude he's the missing child that the receptionist mentioned. Walter acts like an innocent kid and tells Pia that his mother was always mean to him. When Pia turns around to organize a search with Boss, Walter disappears. In the bar, everyone continues to drink and have fun. They don't notice Walter sneaking around and smoothly nibbling people's hands, little by little spreading the vampirism. Dan is mixing his medicine with alcohol but still feels terrible, so he leaves. In the corridor, a staff member shows Dan that his outburst has already been posted online. Dan isn't in the mood and just keeps walking, unaware that Walter is following him. When Walter is about to enter Dan's room, the crew's mascot sees him and tries to kick him out. In his bedroom, Dan tries to consume some more, but he starts spitting blood. When he touches his teeth, they fall off. His body starts shaking as he collapses, slowly transforming into a vampire. At that moment, Walter arrives and makes him drink his own blood. This allows Dan to become a smart vampire instead of a mindless beast. Then Walter opens the bathroom and reveals the wounded mascot. Dan immediately jumps on him to feed. Afterward, Walter tells Dan that he's 143 years old and shows him that their wounds have already healed. Their bodies will heal almost everything and never age. They only need blood. Dan wonders if they're vampires, but Walter dislikes the word because the myth is wrong. They aren't affected by crosses, stakes, or sunlight. The ancients have rules they're supposed to follow, but Walter is tired of it and wants to be respected. Dan also wants that, so they agree to work together. Meanwhile, Tampa's victim is approaching a crowd and Lo sees him, so she takes a picture. Before he can attack, Edith finds him and takes him away. In an empty area, Edith kills the guy and throws him into the sea. In the men's bathroom, Edith finds another bitten guy in a stall. When she hears people coming, she enters the stall too and closes the door. The men relieving themselves think they hear a noise but leave without questioning it much. Then Edith breaks the victim's neck to kill him. Afterward, Edith checks the corridors and finds one more vampire, so she makes her follow her and kills her in a corner. Back to Lo, she checks her picture and discovers that Edith is in it, noticing how suspicious she looks. She even calls her a potential serial killer. Albine thinks she's exaggerating and goes looking for her mother Sarah, who is at the bar with Lo's mom Layla. Sarah is wheelchair-bound and doesn't blame Martin for drinking because she thinks he has a hard time taking care of both her and their son. Layla insists she should leave Martin, but Sarah wants Albine to have someone who can provide for him. She explains it would be much simpler if Albine didn't exist, and unfortunately Albine overhears this last bit without context. The awkward moment is interrupted when Lo arrives too and Albine takes the chance to ignore his mother. Lo shows them Edith's picture and Albine points at her weird teeth, so Sarah concludes she must be an addict. When Albine tells them about the moving suitcase, they don't believe him. Lo then asks Layla if Albine can stay with them tonight because Martin is misbehaving, and Layla agrees. Sarah apologizes to Albine before he leaves. Kaye keeps looking for Vince everywhere to no avail. On the deck, Vince finds Marianne and they end up talking about their bad luck with love. They go to the bar to keep chatting over a drink and Vince convinces Marianne that she needs to leave shame behind and enjoy life. When Goran arrives, Vince quickly leaves them alone. Vince apologizes for moving too fast and Marianne is ready to try again. In the bathroom, Vince gets a call from Kaye but he ignores it. A frustrated Kaye goes to their room and is devastated to discover the surprise Vince had prepared for him. In the meantime, Lo and Albine watch the video of Dan online and they notice Edith looking at him. Getting suspicious, Albine takes Lo to the room where he saw Edith earlier and they knock on the door, but nobody comes out. At that moment Martin wakes up and looks for his son, so the kids run away. In the corridor, Maddie hears a scream so she rushes to the front desk to report what happened. Boss and Pia are sent out to investigate. They split and start knocking on every door, only to find drunk people everywhere. Suddenly Pia hears Boss asking for help on the radio, so she rushes to the other corridor and discovers a bloody handprint on a doorframe. Boss doesn't answer the radio anymore, so Pia enters the room. Growling can be heard and Pia is seen fighting something in the darkness. After some struggle, she manages to free herself and grabs the fire axe to kill her attacker. On Pia's way out, Edith sees the blood and rushes to the room to check which vampire was killed. In her room, Maddie hears knocking and opens the door for her best friend, who comes inside with a lost look on her face. Maddie then notices the terrible wound on her back and thinks her friend was attacked. Suddenly the woman rips off Maddie's earring, so she quickly runs away. Outside, Lo and Albine look for the body they saw earlier and find the bloody teeth. Nearby, Dan messes with the ship's antenna, cutting off all communications. In the control room, the crew discovers they've lost contact with the mainland. Walter and Dan then come in, but the captain ignores them because he's trying to restore communications. Dan takes his hat and puts it on Walter's head before biting him. In the bar, someone yells for help and the crowd watches a woman bring a bleeding friend to the middle of the room. The staff rushes to close the doors right before a bunch of vampires start pounding on them. The guests try to use their phones, but not a single device is working. In the office, Pia cleans off all the blood before trying to use her radio and her phone to no avail. When head of security Ani comes in, Pia tells him that Boss is dead and she killed a passenger in self-defense. She also explains that the passenger bit Boss to death, but Ani doesn't believe that story. Pia points at Tampa in the security cameras, saying he also must be a monster and that they have to lock down the place. However, Ani thinks it's a prank. On another camera, Pia is shocked to see Boss walk out of the room. Edith soon finds him and pushes him back inside. Auntie also sees this and tries calling the captain, but nobody answers the phone. He decides to go out to investigate and tells Pia to stay with the cameras. She watches other guards patrolling the corridors and tries to warn them of what's happening on the radio, but it's too late. The vampires outside the bar see the guards and immediately attack them. After having a small breakdown, Pia manages to contact the receptionist and tells her that all venues are closed now, so she must keep people away from the bar doors. The receptionist uses the broadcast system to make an announcement, asking all guests to stay in their rooms. Lo and Albine try to tell the receptionist that the crazy people are vampires, but Kaye tells them to go back to their parents. In the bar, the wounded woman dies and her friend tries to give her CPR. However, the woman wakes up as a vampire and bites her. Goran and another man pull her back and search for something to tie her up. Pia begins patrolling the corridors and sends the confused guests to their rooms. She comes across Dan, who pretends to be normal. Pia notices his bite mark is gone, but leaves when she hears people screaming. Behind Dan, Walter is eating the receptionist. When he's done, he guides Dan through the ship and teaches him how to control the mindless vampires, making them follow them. In another corridor, Lo and Albine are shocked to see 4 vampires feeding on 2 bodies. Lo starts filming with her phone, but the vampires hear them so the kids have to run away. A chase ensues as more and more vampires appear around the ship. The kids bump into Martin and tell him to run too. He's only convinced when he sees a vampire covered in blood coming after them. No matter what corridor they take, they keep finding vampires, so they make their way to the spa. The clerk is locking the door, but she decides to open it to let the family pass and closes it again before the vampires can follow. Meanwhile, Sarah is looking for her family and also keeps finding vampires in the corridors. She makes her chair go as fast as possible until she makes it to her room, but her family isn't there. When another vampire appears in front of her, she starts driving the chair in reverse to try to escape. Dan and Walter continue to wander around the ship, taking all the vampires with them. In the bar, the barman notices the lack of noise and looks outside to confirm that the creatures are gone. Marianne and the guys wonder if they should go out, but they're interrupted by the bitten woman transforming into a vampire too. As she starts to attack, the crowd panics and runs out of the bar. Once everyone is out, the barman stays behind to lock the door before the vampire attacks him too. Goran and Marianne escape together and avoid any corridors where they hear noises. Marianne realizes she accidentally has Vince's card key, so she says they should head to his room to help him. On their way there, they see a child crying in the corner, so Marianne tries to help her. However, the girl is a vampire too, so the couple runs and manages to hide in Vince's room. At the spa, a vampire pounds on the door until he breaks the lock, but when he comes inside, he doesn't see anybody because the family is hiding in the jacuzzi. At that moment, a landline phone rings and the vampire rushes to the desk, where he finds the clerk and proceeds to eat her. The family takes the chance to leave the spa unnoticed. In the staff room, the whole crew is gathered to discuss the situation. After waiting for a while, Pia realizes the captain isn't coming, so she decides to lead the meeting. She tells everyone that something contagious is making people violent, and doesn't notice Edith sneaking into the room. When Audie finally arrives, he confirms nobody in the control room is answering. He doesn't know what to do or say, so Pia has to take control again. She announces that she and Ani will break into the control room to stop the autopilot. Otherwise, the ship will keep moving until it crashes into the harbor. Once the ship is still, they can lower the lifeboats. Pia also mentions that any person willing to volunteer can go back outside to help lost passengers, but she won't force anyone to work. Unfortunately, the meeting is interrupted by the vampire horde breaking in. The chef tries to confront them with his knife, but a vampire walks right into it without a care. Dan gives an order and the creatures go wild, attacking every member of the staff who doesn't run fast enough. Chaos takes over the room and Pia defends herself against a vampire, but Dan stops him because Pia is his. She isn't strong enough to stop him when Dan tackles her and he proceeds to suck her blood. Suddenly, Edith starts hitting Dan with a fire extinguisher, pushing him out of the room while telling him to stay away from her son. She blames him for putting ideas in Walter's head, but Dan explains Walter planned it all and it was Edith who pushed him into this. Edith keeps hitting him but pauses when she hears the door, so Dan takes the chance to tackle her. When he's about to kill her, Walter stops him and tells him to leave. Then Edith and Walter argue over the rules and how vampires should behave. Walter is angry because his mother condemned him to this life and announced that he hates her before running away. On the deck, people are desperately getting life jackets and trying to board the lifeboats. Albin arrives with his family, but he doesn't want to go because he wants to find his mother. Gora sees all this from the window, so he and Marianne decide to try to get on the boats too. After they leave, Vince finally arrives at his room, but he can't get inside. After the vampires leave the staff room, the survivors help Pia up. She isn't feeling well, so she asks Kaye to go to the control room with Auntie. Before they leave, she gives Kaye the wedding ring she's been protecting. Once they're gone, Pia realizes the smell of blood is calling her. She grabs her handcuffs and straps herself to a railing as she feels the transformation coming. As the guys take the stairs, Auntie feels a little dizzy. They still keep moving and reach the control room, only to notice that everything inside has been destroyed. Suddenly, the captain pounds on the window, revealing he's a vampire too. Obviously, they can't enter this room, so they should stop the engine instead. However, the engine is in the lowest deck, and getting there would be impossible to survive. At that moment, Kaye and Ani see the crowd lowering the lifeboat and run to try to stop them, but it's too late. Because of the ship's speed, the boat sinks into the ocean as soon as it touches the water. Only a few survivors were left behind, like Albin's family and the elderly couple. They ask Kaye and Ani for help, and they agree to stick together while searching for a solution. In the corridors, Edith goes from vampire to vampire, killing them by breaking their necks. Eventually, she finds Pia, who has become a mindless vampire too. Knowing that she'll need her help to finish this, Edith gives Pia some of her blood. Once Pia goes through her new transformation, Edith shows her the picture of Walter she keeps in her locket. She explains he died of tuberculosis, so she took the body to the elder ones and convinced them to save her child. Since then they traveled around the world to avoid attention, but Walter grew more rebellious through the years. Edith points out they have to work together to stop the horse and breaks Pia's hand to remove it from the handcuffs, since it'll heal quickly anyway. Then Edith takes Pia to the reception and tells her to feed. Pia stares at a young woman for a second but lets her go, refusing to hurt the innocent. Edith can tell Pia is in pain and points out that they can't help people if she doesn't feed. Seeing no other choice, Pia jumps on a woman to drink her blood. Once Pia is well fed, Edith teaches her to break the victim's neck so they won't come back as vampires. Pia feels guilty about killing, but Edith reminds her they are monsters now, and if they don't contain them now, they'll spread on the mainland. After killing 2 more vampires, Edith convinces Pia to work together. They walk down the corridor and kill every single vampire they see while looking for Dan. Pia points out that this takes too much time, so they need a different plan. On the stage, Dan looks for Nadia and finds her crying behind the equipment. Dan comforts her and tells her she's special, quickly turning creepy as he says he must have someone to share eternal life with. When he says he loves her, Nadia responds that she'd rather meet her end than be with him. She tries to run away, but Dan catches her and breaks her neck. Afterward, Dan grabs the microphone and sings. When Walter finds him, Dan snaps, calling him pathetic for not finishing his mother. Dan announces the vampires only need 1 leader and takes the captain's hat back before Walter runs away in fear. In the kitchen, Albine's group looks for knives and other things they can use as weapons. Goran takes the chance to admit to Marianne that he spent time in prison, and that's where he met his friends. Lo shows everyone the picture of Edith and Albine explains that she started it all. While they discuss ideas, Ani hides a wound in his hand. Kaye sees a landline phone and tries to call his bedroom, but obviously nobody picks up. In the corridor, Vince feels helpless because he hears the phone ring. Then Albine calls his room and is surprised to hear his mother. He promises to rescue her, but Sarah tells him to leave without her. When Martin takes over the phone, Sarah hangs up. The group then realizes that Ani is missing and finds him in the neighboring room. He finally shows them his wound and tells them to leave without him, passing the MasterCard key to Kaye. After they're gone, Ani spits out a tooth. Refusing to become a monster, Ani goes to the deck and jumps into the ocean to self-delete. When the group reaches the elevator, a vampire tries to follow them, but they move fast and the door closes before the creature attacks. Seconds later, they make it to the engine room and the men argue over how to stop the ship. Albine interrupts them to point at the emergency stop button. As soon as they press it, the ship stops moving and the lights go out. Noticing this, Pia tells Edith that help will arrive in around an hour. Edith realizes Pia was right about needing a different plan and thinks they should burn the ship. At first, Pia refuses to sacrifice the survivors, but Edith reminds her that if they don't end this, vampirism will spread on the mainland and will reach Pia's kids too. After Pia agrees, Edith explains they need to take all the vampires to the garage and make the cars explode. Pia convinces her to split to cover more ground. Meanwhile, Albine's group keeps moving and is chased by another vampire. Martin uses Lo as a shield, but Marianne quickly kills the creature with a knife. Afterward, everyone judges Martin, who claims he did it to protect his son. However, Albine snaps at him too and says he'll save his mom, so Martin leaves alone to search for the other lifebutts. When everyone else turns around, Albine leaves alone too, so Lo goes looking for him. Soon Pia reaches the reception and uses the broadcast system to tell survivors to go to the lifeboats. Dan interrupts her when he realizes she's a smart vampire, and Pia tells him about Edith's plan. She wants to work together to stop her, but Dan locks her up in a cell and says he hopes the crews will burn. After promising to escape on a lifeboat, he turns off the sprinkler system. In the lower deck, Edith realizes Pia only pretended to agree with her. When she finds a survivor asking for help, she sedates him and cuts his body before dragging it through the ship. The smell of blood causes other vampires to follow her. In the corridor, Vince hears a noise and follows it to find Maddie hiding behind a cart. After hearing the announcement, they agree to go to the lifeboats together. They manage to hide in the elevator before Edith passes by, followed by the creatures. Nearby, Lo and Albine reunite before they see all the vampires walking together. Walter also comes out when he hears the noise and looks at the kids, but he ignores them and follows the horde. When Lo and Albine finally reach the family room, they find Sarah dead on the floor. Albine has a breakdown, and Lo fails to snap him out of it. At the same time, Goran and Marianne also split from the group to go looking for Goran's friends, but the rooms are empty. Thinking they won't survive, they admit their feelings for each other and end up getting naughty. In the garage, Edith finally drops the body and lets the vampires feed. Then she takes a gas can from her van and starts pouring it all over the place. She also throws some inside the van, where she turns on the oven. When she searches for her lighter, she finds the old photo album and is touched by all the memories. Walter comes to check on her and apologizes, saying it's all his fault. Edith hugs him and says it's okay, but she also admits she can't do this anymore. After telling him she loves him, she lights a flame and throws it on the gas. The resulting explosion kills every vampire in the room and makes the whole ship shake. The flames soon spread through the corridors and reach Dan, who covers himself with his guitar. When the fire alarm starts wailing, Lo convinces Albine to move too, only to find the door blocked by Martin, who has become a vampire as well. Lo pushes him out and the cousins close the door together, but Martin is strong enough to push it open again. He knocks Albine down and gets ready to bite, so Lo jumps on him to try to stop him. Martin easily gets Lo off him and tries to attack Albine again. At that moment, Sarah wakes up as a vampire and hits Martin with a bottle to knock him down. Lo drags Albine out of the room so Sarah can kill her husband without guilt. At the reception, Kaye uses the broadcast system to tell survivors to go to the lifeboats because there's a fire. He also tells Vince to get over it. Hearing this, Vince and Maddie go looking for him. While they run, Maddie accidentally cuts her foot. All the survivors who have been hiding in their rooms come out and panic takes over the corridors. Goran and Marianne run as well, dodging flames and creatures as they go. Unfortunately, a vampire gets close enough and Gorn acts as a sacrifice so Marianne can escape. As smoke starts filling every corner, Kaye hears Pia's voice. He finds a radio on her body and she tells him that she's stuck, so Kaye rushes to the cells to help her. However, he freezes when he notices the bite mark on her neck. Pia explains they must kill all the vampires and she's the only one who can do it, so Kaye agrees to free her after all. Afterward, they rush to the cameras to make an evacuation plan. Kaye gets distracted when he sees Vince on a pile of bodies, but Pia reminds him to concentrate. Meanwhile, a vampire approaches Maddie and Vince, who are only pretending to be dead. By lying down with other bodies, the smells mix and the vampire leaves without attacking. Suddenly, one of the bodies wakes up as a vampire, so Maddie and Vince have to carefully move away. Unfortunately, Maddie steps on a squeaky toy and the previous vampire comes back. However, Pia shows up to kill it just in time. She tells the duo to run before killing the new creature too. As the flames reach the upper decks, Pia keeps running to the rooms to help the survivors evacuate. Outside, Kaye guides everyone toward the boats. When Lo and Albin arrive, they're excited to reunite with Layla, who's also survived. She thanks Kaye for his help before they get on the boat together. Kaye should leave too, but he hesitates. His hopes are rewarded when Vince appears behind him and they reunite with a kiss. While Marianne searches for life jackets, Maddie sees someone covering his face with a blanket, so she pulls it to find Dan. When he tries to say he isn't a vampire, Pia shows up to stop him, so Dan takes Maddie hostage. Pia claims she doesn't care about humans anymore and Dan buys the lie, so he lets Maddie go and runs away. Kaye finishes putting the last survivors on the boats while Pia searches for Dan. In the reception, Dan attacks her and a vicious battle ensues. They exchange a few hits and Pia stabs him in the stomach with a knife, but this barely hurts him and the fight continues. Both vampires are very strong, but Dan manages to get the upper hand and captures Pia in a chokehold. When he's about to kill her, Kaye shows up and throws a weapon at Pia, which she uses to knock Dan down. Then she grabs his neck and breaks it to finally kill him. Afterward, Kaye and Pia run back to the deck where the boat is still waiting. However, Pia knows what she's become and tells Kaye to leave without her. Kaye refuses to abandon her, and after lots of begging, she gets on the boat too. The final survivors leave and everyone cries in relief while the ship slowly crumbles under the flames. At sunrise, helicopters finally appear in the sky to rescue the survivors. Meanwhile, on a nearby island, a person is walking their dog when they find the vampire girl in the sand. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.